Good afternoon. Every week I get to lead a mastermind. Well, we call it a book club, but book club sounds really nerdy. So sometimes I call it a mastermind because I don't want to sound nerdy. I lead a book club for several entrepreneurs. There's usually about 10 of us that are in the group. And right now we're going through this book. We just started, Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And he's talking about the law of influence, that leadership can be measured by one thing and one thing only: influence. If you see influence, you see a leader. If you don't see influence, you don't see a leader. He talks about a couple myths that I used to believe that really used to trip me up. And I think even still sometimes I get tripped up by them, but a lot less now than I used to. The first one is the knowledge myth. And it's this idea that being educated or having an IQ or being smarter than the next person equates to leadership. I used to believe that the smarter that I was, the more leadership I would have. And I just assumed that I went to high school, I did well. I went to college, I went well. I had a master's degree, I did well. That I was a leader. I should be a leader because I have these smarts. And in fact, very immaturely, a long time ago, I used to have this belief that if I couldn't make you like me, at least I could let you know that I'm smarter than you. I had this story that I told myself that being smart was valued above everything else. And so if I couldn't get you to like me, if I couldn't get you to let me be in your group, in your club or whatever, that at least I could let you know I'm smarter than you, because being smart is a trump card. And I used to think that education led to leadership. That's not true at all. There's this phrase that I have really leaned into because it describes a shift in my life. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And what I found out for me was, in my pursuit of being smart, in my pursuit of letting everybody else know that I was smarter than them, whether I was smarter than them or not, I don't know, but I sure told myself that I was smarter than everybody else. In my pursuit of being smart, I found myself isolated. In isolation, not in a group, not in a team, not working well in a group, I was just going fast. I didn't really have anybody with me. I was just going fast. That's not leadership. There's no influence there. You can't influence anybody when you're on your own. So I was falling face first into this myth that knowledge is leadership. The second one is the what John Maxwell calls a position myth, that having a title of a leader or a manager or being in a hierarchy where people are reporting to you, that is leadership. Let me tell you this one. Let me tell you this. I bit into this, whatever it's called, hook, line, and sinker. That having a position of leader was leadership. I remember the very first time I got promoted to project manager, I was begging almost my boss to be a project manager. Why? It's not because I wanted to manage more projects. It's not because I wanted to have develop people, not because I wanted to bring people together on a team to work towards a project more. Not at all. Actually, I wasn't interested in that at all. It's very, very selfish. I recognize that now. All that I wanted was a title of project manager, because that meant that I was important. At least in my world, it was important. I really didn't. I cared about the people who worked for me because I cared about people, but I didn't care about them because they were on my team. I didn't care about them because they were working on my project. All I wanted was a title. I just wanted the title. And I was a very, very poor leader. I had almost zero influence. Again, was I able to do the work well? Yeah, I worked hard. I studied hard. But was I influencing the people on my team? Not at all. Leadership is influence. And if there's no influence, there's no leadership. And what I see now as I'm growing is that being smart is not leadership. Having a title of leadership is not leadership. Leadership is influence. Leadership is looking at the people around me and saying, how can I influence them to move forward with me? How can we go far together? And I recognize that when I thought that being smart was leadership, when I thought that having the title of leadership was leadership, I was incredibly frustrated, because I thought I was doing the things that I always wanted to do, was be a leader. I wanted to be recognized as being a leader. I didn't want the responsibility. I wanted the recognition of being a leader. And so I did as little responsibility as possible so I could still get recognized as being a leader. And that part of my life was necessary to grow through to bring me where I am today. But when I was reading this chapter on the knowledge myth and the position myth, it hit home to me because I recognize that I have bought into those myths hard before. And even still, I was challenged just a couple weeks ago by a really good friend of mine, Kent, who challenged me on whether I was still falling into the position myth, that I thought I was a good leader simply because I was a leader in title. And how well am I taking care of the people who work for me? How well am I influencing and leading them as people, not just pawns to work on my little team? So leadership is influence. This is what I'm learning. This is what I'm growing through. This is what I'm specifically focusing on. Leadership is influence. That's all it is, nothing less. He says in here, don't listen to the claims of the person professing to be the leader. Don't examine the credentials. Don't check for titles. Don't check for titles. Check for influence. The proof of leadership is found in the followers. So the question I ask myself is, who's following me? Who am I influencing? Who's following you? Who are you influencing? And maybe you with me have fallen into the myth of knowledge myth or the position myth. There's an opportunity to grow and to influence, truly influence those around us.